Right, we'll get cracking. I think that's a couple of minutes for everybody to join. So thank you to everyone for joining our pre-launch webinar of Reading, which is RG1. We're really excited to have this development. We've been working on this for a couple of months now, getting ready for launch. It's been really popular with our partner agents and our existing clients. So yeah, looking forward to presenting this one and going live with it. Let me just start flicking through. So what we're going to cover today, so obviously we're going to meet who's on the webinar, meet our hosts. We're going to give you a little bit of a property market update, what's been happening in the market over the last couple of years and what the projections are moving forward. We're going to talk about Reading itself. Obviously, we're here to talk about the building that is in Reading. So yeah, going to give you a bit of a deep dive into Reading as a location. And then we're going to talk about the investment opportunity and the rental demand as well. As always, guys, if there's any questions at all, please do pop them into the questions box and we'll try and cover those off at the end. Right, so our lovely hosts. So you've got myself, Andy, New Homes and Investments Director here at Centric Land New Homes and Invest. We've got John and Sean out there in Asia, living the dream as expats investments directors. So thanks for joining, guys. And we're also joined from Philip Ryans, Managing Director of Brick Management, who are going to talk to us all about why Reading is an incredible rental investment opportunity. So thanks for joining, guys. Next slide, then we're going to talk about the UK property market, what's been going on, just to give you a bit of background. So at the moment, as we stand, some of these stats are national averages. So the average rent across the UK is just a little above £1,500 per calendar month. That's based on standard ASTs, not short-term lets or service accommodation. Mortgage rates, as we know, have started to fall over the last few months. Bank of England have obviously dropped their rates a couple of times. So we started to see the mortgage rates on fixed loans, in particular 5-year fixed rate mortgages, start to drop towards the low end of the 4%. So really good sign for the economy and things to come. Average asking price of properties coming to the market currently sits at 353,000 across the UK. And the increase in sales versus this time last year has been up almost 4%. So I think there's some really good signs looking forward into 2025 and beyond. Phil, would you agree? Has there been any kind of change in rental demand that you've seen over the last few months into quarter one?
Yes, Andy. I mean, really, since 2025's kicked off, we've noticed quite a sizable increase again in the demand for rental accommodation. We've had an extremely busy Q1 to the year.
Good to hear. Okay. Sean, I think you're going to take the next few slides.
Cool, perfect. Thank you, Andy. So I'll go through quickly some statistics on Reading, a bit of an investment case, and I'll pass on to Philip, who can give you some more kind of information on the rental market, UK-wide and Reading specifically. So the first thing to note is, okay, the big things that we look at when we look at areas to invest when we're looking on to take on developments. Okay, the three things I would say are infrastructure investments, economic migration, and universities. So the first one, okay, you see at the bottom is the universities. Okay, so it's a big university town. And I don't necessarily suggest targeting students as tenants, but more so about, people going to university, staying after university because there's job opportunities and people like living there. So those young professionals, 25 to 35 are the tenants that we're looking at primarily. And obviously the average age to buy a house in the UK is going up, which we talked about for a while. The second one I mentioned was infrastructure investments. Okay, now Reading has been a massive benefactor of the Elizabeth Crossrail line. Okay, so for those of you that have been on it and those of you that haven't, okay, this is a new train line that completed about 2 years ago, 18 months ago in the UK, and it's one of the rare trains that's actually on time all the time, and it's nice to be on, and it's all clean and brand new. Okay, so basically the Elizabeth Crossrail line, it finishes in Reading or starts in Reading, depends how you look at it. Goes through into Paddington, so 25 minutes into Paddington, London Paddington, and then it goes on through into Canary Wharf, Liverpool Street, and through to the east of London. You can also actually go into Paddington and back out to Heathrow Airport in 35 minutes. Heathrow Airport is basically one of the biggest airports in the UK. So again, connectivity is huge. what this has meant, so there's some statistics here from the Office of National Statistics. So prices for apartments actually went up over 6% last year, January to January, so January 24 to January 25. Rents in Reading itself, okay, so rents on average about 11-12% have gone up. One beds are well over 12%, okay, that's rents gone up January 24 to January 25. Again, as there's a kind of growing trend, I think, post-COVID, and as things are getting more expensive in the UK, people moving outside of London to these areas. Okay, the last one I mentioned was economic migration. So Andy, if you could go to the next slide. Economic migration, okay, the reason why I say that, especially in this instance, so you have that tenant pool, you have that commuter play into London, which a huge amount of people do. But you also have in Reading itself, you have a huge tenant pool. Okay, so you have Oracle head office are there, Microsoft UK head office are there, Cisco, Airbus, IBM, Deloitte have got offices there, Apple have got offices there, PwC. So again, you have that commuter play, but you also have a huge tenant pool of their own in and around Reading itself. Okay, so there's a little bit of a map here. RG1 is the development we're talking about today. You can see that's minutes walk away from the station, just to the right. You have more to the further to the left, you have Oracle Shopping Centre, which is a cinema shopping centre, as it says. There's kind of bars and restaurants that go all along this River Kennet along there. Just behind Oracle Shopping Centre, you have the Hexagon, which I'll talk about more in a second, which has a big redevelopment coming. And then further down towards kind of more towards middle to the right is something called the Blade, which again is a big commercial office building. But you have everything you want, everything you want as a tenant in and around city centre or town centre living. Next slide, please, Andy. So, okay, Reading master plan. If you go next slide. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, okay, is actually there's one slide missing here, but it's a 750 million pound, 250 million pound redevelopment in around this Hexagon Square. Okay, which basically where the theatre is. It's going to be bars, restaurants. In this image, you can see Hexagon Cafe as an example. But also with that theatre, which is called Hexagon Square, it's going to be a big 250 million pound regeneration in and around that area. Next one, please, as well. Okay, and then also there's going to be another redevelopment by the station as well. Again, not on here for some reason, but that's also 750 million pounds. Okay, which is called Station Hill, right next to the station. That's going to include regeneration of the station itself, which has already happened. There's a big office building next to it, which is already there. Again, here we go, Station Hill, 750 million pounds. Okay, there's going to be new office buildings. There's going to be 600 residential buildings, things like that. So again, you already have this growing kind of growing demand for the town centre, but there's only more and more growth going on in the town centre. Next slide. Cool. I will pass you over to Phil to talk about the rental market a little bit.
Thanks, Sean, for the introduction. Brick Management and Lettings. We are a market-leading buy-to-let property management company set up exclusively for buy-to-let landlords. Typically specialising in non-UK based landlords, so landlords that are situated in Asia, the Middle East, Africa. Our head office is in Farnborough, so we're about 30 minutes away from Reading. And in terms of, I suppose, our experience with the Reading and the local market, we've been involved there for the last sort of 5 years or so. And in those 5 years, obviously sort of post-COVID, it's really gone from strength to strength. I'll touch on that again in a little bit later. We're very proud of obviously the awards that we've won, and we offer all of our landlords a full sort of management hands-off service. If we go on the next slide, which again, I suppose sort of peace of mind, particularly understanding the needs for landlords based overseas to ensure that it's a sort of hands-off, hassle-free investment for them. So again, just sort of very briefly running through, I mentioned it's a hands-off, so anything from obviously from day one, from collecting the keys, the snagging, the advertising, finding a tenant, the referencing, the legal contracts, moving the tenants in, again, providing support on any mortgage applications or process agent status, collecting the rental every month and paying that over accordingly, helping with taxes, as well as all the day-to-day running and management, whether that be maintenance or bills, service charges. We can also help with a supply of furnishing packs. And as a landlord, most landlords will always question to me, what happens if the tenant doesn't pay rent? We've got that covered too. we've got rental protection products that again allow and ensure that the rental income is always obtained. Next slide. So obviously, just briefly touched on about, generally speaking, the UK rental market. I suppose in short, it's supply and demand. Rental demand is at a record high, and the supply of properties, particularly new builds, is at a record low. Post-COVID, it's very much evident that we've noticed in the rental market that households are somewhat smaller. There's a much more demand for 1 and 2 bed, this sort of single living. Perhaps historically a 2 bed might have been used by perhaps 2 professional sharers. Now it's very commonplace that perhaps those 2 sharers both work on a hybrid working model where they now need perhaps their own individual property. So the 1-bedroom properties particularly are obviously in a high demand. In terms of the sort of shift in the UK, it's probably fair to say that as a perception, I suppose, from owner-occupier, there is that shift now going to more of a rental model. And over the last 5 years, we've seen obviously very healthy rental increases. Obviously from JLL there, obviously the rental increase predicted for the next 5 years is still a further 17.1% as a national average. In the Southeast, Reading Pacific, it's greater than, so in excess of 18%. And having seen it firsthand ourselves, we see the demand ever increasing, and we're always seeing consistent rental steps forward. Next slide, if possible. So, as mentioned in there, obviously the rental market in Reading, we've been involved there for the last 5 years or so. For us, the tenant demographic is predominantly professionals. It was touched on earlier that obviously the fantastic infrastructure that Reading benefits from. So that being the Queen Elizabeth line to the Reading railway station. Not only can you go into London, but you can also head north. So, direct lines to Birmingham and Manchester, as well as to the south coast. It's also located on the M4 corridor, which again is a strong employment hub for many of our tenants because of the icon companies located there. But Reading as well has got a strong student population. So again, it's very popular with overseas students that perhaps are coming in here to do studies in the UK. And in terms of students remaining in, as Sean touched on earlier, it's very common for people to study and then remain in the area. This year alone, it's forecasted that the rentals will increase just shy of 5%, so 4.5%. If we can go on the next slide. So specific to RG1, I went down and had a look at the site prior to this. It's a fantastic location. The guys will probably touch on it, but for us, we manage actually a significant number of properties within Reading. Many of them are perhaps slightly further out of the city, and again they can receive strong rental returns. But actually the advantage to this site is it's only within a 3-minute walk of the station. In terms of rentals, 1-bedrooms, I would anticipate we can certainly look to achieve sort of £13.75 per calendar month, and the 2-beds one hopes north of 1,700. That's supported on the basis of all the previous properties we already manage in there. And as I say, in terms of location, RG1, in my opinion, is probably somewhat better than perhaps some of the other schemes that we also currently manage. One of the key things for Reading is parking. Parking is quite tight in the city centre and are not that common. So actually any properties that you have the facility of getting parking, again, can help with the rental premium that can be achieved. Next slide. Or I'll pass you back on to Centric.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks for that. Yeah, John, I think you're going to take the slides from here.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Phil. Really good to hear about the track record in Reading and what's actually drawing tenants in. So yeah, RG1, we're super excited to launch this project. This is the official launch event. So as you can see, it's a conversion project. If we go into the next slide, we can draw into this. So location-wise, this is one of the best located schemes we've ever been involved in. Regards to, we'll come on to a sort of map shortly. So as Sean mentioned, I think we've done ourselves a disservice. We're saying 5 minutes to the station. I think it's 3 or 4 minutes. So let's say it's 5 if it's a slow walk, but really super close. You're just talking a few hundred meters. Then you're literally 4 minutes to the Oracle, which has got all of those jobs and companies in. To the Hexagon. So all the things that would be mentioned within a 5 minute walk, basically. So you're at the centre of absolutely everything. So location is absolutely perfect. You're 5 minutes to the station, and then from there you're actually straight into London Paddington, as Sean mentioned, and into Heathrow, Bond Street. So you've got that pool of people working at the airport who might like this, people working in the city. In London, and also people working in Reading, so kind of everything. There are car parks, as Phil mentioned, available. They're just £10,000 each, and on that basis, there's jobs around Reading as well at the business parks, so within 10-15 minute drive, so kind of captures anything. Very rarely do you have a project where you can actually walk to so many jobs at this price point, and especially these yields which are being projected. Thank you. Next slide. So here's a bird's eye view of the project, where the building has been outlined. That's the project. It's existing building being converted into 31 luxury apartments. Completion is Q4 this year. As you can see, the walking route to the station is just a few hundred meters. So yeah, the fact it's completed means that it's a fast turnaround from build. It's just 31 apartments, so developers saying about a 6 months conversion time, which is super fast and really great to be getting tenants in this year. A lot of the time, people are buying off 2, 3, 4 years off plan, which works for some people. But yeah, able to get a yield quite quickly works for some clients. It's nice to get that return happening sooner rather than later. But yeah, location is unrivaled. Okay, next slide. Another bird's eye view. So yeah, all the landmarks that we've mentioned today, Blade, Hexagon, train station, you can see RG1 is absolutely at the centre of all of these things. Walk, train or drive. Okay. Okay, so let's get into it. So RG1, the development. So just 31 apartments. We've got a pre-release of 10 apartments, the luxury 1 and 2 bedrooms. Prices from £229,000, so 229. Deposit is 20% on exchange, and then the balance on completion, which, as I've mentioned, is Q4 2025. Really nice specification. This developer has won awards. Really nice finish, which is designed for that professional tenant. So just think of that person working at Oracle, person working at Cisco. That's your tenant profile. Really, location is unrivaled, and as parking space, there is only 10 at £10,000 of space, so they'll be snapped up in no time, no doubt. Okay, next slide. Okay, so more of the CGI, so you can see the really modern finish in the kitchens, which is Bosch equivalent in the kitchens. You've got the really nice designed and specification bathrooms and living room. So yeah, these are a really good size for investors. So you're talking around 450 square feet for 1 bed typically, and about 700 square feet for 2 beds, which kind of give you that optimal yield. Very livable in, and you can just think of someone who just wants to be at the centre of everything. So they want that nice kitchen, bathroom, and but the location is right next to absolutely everything on foot. So if you do want to drive, the 2 beds will probably get the car park demand, but for the 1 beds, you probably don't need one, where you can actually walk to absolutely everything 4 or 5 minutes to the train station. All right. Okay, who's building it? Who's behind this? So Mandel Group. We're really pleased to be working with these guys on this site. They've got an excellent track record. If we go on to the next slide, we'll talk about some of the awards that they've won. They've won awards over the years for various projects, residential, commercial, conversions. So really good track record. They've done lots of stuff in the north. They've also done some projects around the London area. We're super happy to be working with them. There is a great thing with this. It's got a deposit protection scheme in place, which is a checkmate equivalent, which is what only a good developer will take it out. So yeah, we're really happy with the spec, their track record, and what they bring to the party, basically. Okay, thank you. Okay, so key summary. I think we mentioned location quite a few times. The location's unrivaled. The tech jobs, Reading is deemed as sort of Silicon Valley of the UK. So you've got all these tech jobs which aren't in London, and they seem to be around Reading. So you've got a really good location there for jobs there. But to be next to the train station just means you've got that London pool. London is super expensive, and you can be in within 25 minutes. You're kind of like zone 2 London time getting into central London. So you've got the best of both worlds, where you can have tenants on your doorstep or tenants in London, and both will like this project. And then the actual projects to kick on the growth, which Sean touched on, which was the infrastructure of £250 million project, Hexagon, and the other £850 million project, which will just supercharge the investment over the next 5 years. Okay. Okay, so as we mentioned, it's 20% on exchange. Anyone who's keen can just reach out to us after this to have a conversation. We've got quite a few people looking at some of these 1 beds especially, and some of the 2 beds. So let's get into the price list. Okay, so we had official launches today. We've had pre-sales happening in the last sort of 7 days, and five units have already been reserved. But there are some great 1 beds remaining right now, especially apartment 18, which we'll come on to on the floor plan. Price is at 232, so 430 square feet. Rentals, which have been appraised by Brick, and we've got a rental report on this, would be expecting £13.25 a month, which is a gross yield of 6.8%. Now, to be so close to London, hates me to say it, this is higher than Birmingham, Manchester. So these yields are really super strong. Some of the strongest that we've seen of recent times, and obviously that's backed up by the 12% rental year on year that we had for 1 beds in rental in Reading in the last 12 months. Cracking 2 beds on the top floor, 2 bed 2 bath. All the 2 beds are 2 bed 2 bath, and from 354. Again, these are going to rent for £1,700 a month. According to Brick, which is about a 6% yield. So the 1 bed's a slightly higher yield, but of course some people just like that 2 bed 2 bath option, which young professionals like, who like to share, got their own bathroom and things like that. So yeah, a good mix here. We have got access to more units, but there may be a price rise, especially on the 1 beds on the second phase. So if you are keen, the sooner you get in, the better, because as I can see, there's 4 1 2 3 4 5 1 beds left. 4 1 beds left. Okay, next slide. Okay, so best pick 18, as I mentioned. So this is a 1 bed, 430 square feet, really nice layout, very orthodox sort of floor plan. 232,500 is the price, and we've gone through the rentals already. On the 2 bed 2 bath, it's a really nice shape as well. Second bathroom and an ensuite. 354,500. So money required on that 1 bed is 46,500 on exchange. Then near to completion, you can start your mortgage, and we've got mortgage options for expats overseas. You can typically get 75% easily. Some lenders will go to 80, but obviously that's on a case by case. On the 2 bed, money required on 20% on exchange is 70k approximately, 79,900. So yeah, any mortgage questions as well? If you think, right, I'm interested, I need to get a mortgage, come and speak to us. We've got some really good brokers who we work with, who can discuss that before you commit to anything. All right, next slide. Okay, so any questions, guys?
Before we start, I've actually got a question for Phil here. A good opportunity time to ask. One of the biggest questions I get asked is whether to put furniture in there or not. What is your opinion on that, Phil?
With the rental market specific to Reading, we do find that furnished properties rent a little bit quicker, a little bit more in demand, and they can achieve a slight premium. What we will tend to find is, particularly on the 1 bedrooms, we would normally recommend the furnishing packs. It's very common for us to get people relocating outside from London, where they're more used to furnished accommodation. So it's almost a like for like as they come step out of London a little.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Sean. Off panel question. Right, Laura's just handing me some questions from our glamorous assistant, Laura. We've got a question from Veronica, who's actually put a few in there. So Do we have examples of furniture packs with prices? Phil, it's probably one for you, but I suppose there's different packages, different premiums.
Exactly that. There's sort of like almost like a medal sort of hierarchy, shall we say? So sort of like bronze, silver, and gold packages. But generally speaking, for a one bedroom as a sort of a ballpark figure, sort of £4,000 or so, there or thereabouts.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. She's just putting their minimum and max. So yeah, I think that gives a. What would be the maximum you would spend on a one bed, Phil?
What, for the furnishing pack, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the furnishings, I think again, just looking at what's available and the choices. When you furnish a property, it's really the main bulky furnishings required. The main furniture, sofas, table chairs, beds, bedside cabinets, wardrobes, etc. I wouldn't go to the nth degree of putting plates, knives, forks, and such like in. So really, keep it below sort of the £5,000 mark.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Phil. And I think from my experience, and Phil, you'll probably back me up on this, but just having something that looks a little bit different, a feature wall, some wall art, some colourful throws, that kind of stuff, rather than just leaving it as empty mattresses, can make a big difference on that kind of first impression for tenants.
Yeah, most definitely. The dressing, obviously, of course, definitely helps, and ever more so actually when you're scrolling through Rightmove, as a tenant would do, looking for rental accommodation. Some fantastic photography of the units, and with the furnishings, it makes a massive difference, and of course at the end of the day helps you achieve a premium rental.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one from Damien here. What's going to be on the ground floor? Any services for residents? Sean, do you want to take that in terms of the block?
Yeah. I was going to say, so there isn't any services. There's apartments on the ground floor. It's just that for our first 10 picks, the first kind of release, we didn't pick any out of the ground floor, but there will be another seven apartments on the ground floor. There isn't actually any amenities in here in terms of things like concierge, swimming pools, gyms, and all that. For me, that's actually probably what we look for more so than anything, to be honest. Is for me personally, when I'm purchasing, I'm purchasing a property at the moment, and that's something I don't want. The reason why that is, this is just purely my opinion. It may get a higher rent, but that usually means that your service charge is going to be higher and your management fees, because you're paying for someone's salary, you're paying for electricity bills, things like that, and so it's going to be higher, but it's also very prone to inflation that way, right? So this doesn't have any amenities, which is something we really like. It's right in the center of town, right? So it's going to have all those things on your doorstep. But that also means, as an investor, it means your net yields are going to be lower as well. Net yields are going to be higher. Sorry,
Yeah.
Costs lower, net yields higher.
Running costs, yeah. I think the basement level is the parking. There's then obviously going to be some cycle storage and all the usual things required for planning and modern day living. But yeah, no major, like you said, Sean, concierge services or anything like that. Veronica, you put quite a few questions in here. So yes, there is a lift in the building. Yes, we can share you a price list with rental comparables. Philip's kindly put together a rental proposal for us with some comparable evidence. So yeah, Veronica, I think it's probably worth a call after with the multiple questions to run through. Damien, we've answered your one. Got one asking about the length of the lease. John, it's a brand new lease, isn't it? How long is that going to be?
Okay, so for anyone outside the UK, all apartments in the UK are leasehold. You can only buy land on a freehold basis. So the best lease you can get is 999, and guess what this is? It's 999. So you might get some schemes which are 250, 125. This is 999. So yeah, as good as it gets.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's 999 with share of freehold, I believe. So yeah, the best lease out there to get. Phil, got one around the parking. We obviously mentioned that there's huge demand for parking. I don't think we clarified probably what the uplift in rent might be per month, per calendar month.
Yeah, we've got a development probably 2 or 3 buildings away from this scheme, and actually in specific to those ones, particularly again they are lent more on the 2 beds, but with the parking we can get sort of a premium rental of up to sort of 75, even £100 a month in addition, just for the parking.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. What else we got here? The lease.
Yeah, to me, just on the parking, if the developer would have said £25,000, I'd have said that's a fair price, to be honest. So the car parks, if you're in Hong Kong, car parks cost about £100,000, and nearer to where the money is, where London, London, you're probably looking at 50k in London. So for £10,000, they're an absolute no-brainer. Normally, I'd be kind of adverse to getting a car park in a city centre like Birmingham. Normally, they're £25,000 in Birmingham. So £10,000, first come, first serve, basically on that basis. So yeah, they are definitely a bolt-on to be having if you can get one.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Got another one here. We mentioned quite an ambitious build program. I think we mentioned 6-7 months. John, do you just want to reiterate what the anticipated build program is?
Yeah, so Q4, so the developer is selling us, they're on site now. So basically, it's a conversion. So, it's not like the building has to be put up, it's all internal. So they've got a track record of doing this kind of stuff, and they're very confident they'll be delivering this by November, Q4. So, yeah, 6 months.
Brilliant. Okay. And then last one, I think for now, Phil, I've got one here saying, where do you see rents going over the next 5 years in Reading? Crystal ball time.
Yeah, I suppose one of the things is I can't see the demand getting lesser in the next 5 years, which I suppose ultimately, based on historics, only means one thing: rentals are going to continue to step forward and move forward. We've obviously touched on the location. It's very well located for the city centre, the local offices, but also the station, which is perhaps better than many of the other comparatives that are currently in the marketplace. But yeah, I mean, obviously the university continues goes from strength to strength, and with this hybrid working model that seems to be awash in a lot of careers and industries. Actually, people that want to work in London for 2 days but live outside, Reading's perfect. So yeah, I can only but see rents continuing to go up as well as the demand.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to look backwards as well, right? And I think last year's stat I read somewhere that Reading's increased by in excess of 14% last year. So if history is anything to go by, we'd expect a strong rental market again this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Reading as a city has a lot to offer for the younger generation, with the bars and the nightlife, as well as the local parks and leisure facilities. So yeah, I was going to say it's all positive in my view.
Brilliant. Okay, guys, I don't think there's any other questions that have come in. So thanks everybody for their time. And yeah, look forward to working on this one with you all. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to get in touch with us at centricinvest.com or on the usual channels, LinkedIn or Instagram. Brilliant. Cheers, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Good stuff. Cheers, too.
Bye.
Lovely. Thank you.